Hey, this is John from Warbringer, and you are watching iCrates TV.
Hello, iCrates people. How are you? This month's issue is about virtuosos, and my mind instantly went to Niccolo Paganini. And then I realized that I don't know a fucking thing about Niccolo Paganini, so there's nothing to talk about. I was thinking that maybe I might tell a story about Phil Spector. Would you like to hear a story about Phil Spector? No? Okay, let me tell you all about it. Phil Spector was a director. A director? Where did I get that from? Phil Spector was not a director. Phil Spector was a record producer infamous for the Wall of Sound. I have quite the affinity for girl groups and just pop songs from the 50s and 60s. So a lot of the stuff that he put out is stuff that I really like. I found the whole Wall of Sound thing pretty interesting. What he would do, and he'd go to the same studio all the time, Gold Star Studios. And what he would do is he'd cram as many musicians as he possibly could into that studio, and he'd have all of them play exactly the same thing. So at one point I was reading, and he got something like 100 guitars just crammed into the studio and told them to do exactly the same thing. And they went out and they were playing just exactly the same chords, and they were supposed to do it all in unison. The thing is because you got 100 people, obviously it's not going to be in unison. There's always going to be kind of like these microseconds, either early or late, so it kind of just expands the sound. And you know, if you listen to a Ronettes record or a Crystals record, Righteous Brothers, you'll see that that's exactly the case. It's just a big booming songs, you know, and they were recorded in mono, so they were meant to just come out of one little speaker. And when Phil Spector would put his music together, that's exactly what he would do. He would get into a car and listen very intently. He wouldn't listen to stereophonic. He was interested in mono because he knew that a lot of music was listened to in cars. So cars don't have stereos, it was all mono. So he would spend his time in his car, he'd listen to the music, and he developed this idea of what music should sound like in mono. And the Wall of Sound was part of that. Just, you know, create this big, loud sound, you know, that will necessarily make an impact even through just one speaker. Actually, he's the one who produced Ike and Tina Turner's River Deep Mountain High. That's a perfect example of the Wall of Sound. Like, you really feel it's a very big, bombastic song. Thing is, the record didn't sell very well, and Phil Spector completely lost his shit. He wasn't very pleased and denounced it. Listen to it, there's nothing to be ashamed of. It's River Deep Mountain High, man. It's a great song, you know? So anyway, he went on to produce the Beatles and George Harrison, and later on in 1980 he actually produced the Ramones, this record right here. And the story behind it's pretty interesting also.